All right, digital multimedia. Here we are. I told you guys I was going to shoot a video for you guys. I want to try to keep it as brief as possible because really what you guys are creating is not all that difficult. I already have my Photoshop window open and the Netflix icon that we just wrapped up in today's class ready to go. I'm sorry, I'm speaking from the past. So if you didn't already, pause this video and make sure you either open up what work you have saved from last class period, or if you weren't here, you can go to Edmodo and download a copy of the version that you see up on the screen. It's not going to be the whole icon, it's just going to lead you up until where we left off in yesterday's class period, but it will get you started in the right foot. So go ahead and pause this right now and get that open. Well, if you did that, welcome back. Actually, the Netflix logo is really, really simple. And I'm going to try to talk you guys through this the right way. At any point in time, you need to pause this video so you can catch up. I will also try to zoom in and show you guys specific buttons that I might be clicking or measurements and dimensions of things that I need to make this logo legitimately look like the Netflix logo. To start off here, you can see on my workspace, I have the icon sort of up. I have, there we go. I have this two kind of layer system here, the black layer, and I have also the shape that I made before we left off. I am going to move this around just a little bit so that you can see which shape I'm referring to. And always remember to double check your layers up here and make sure you're on the correct layer. Now, if you open this program and you already have a red rectangle or a colored rectangle ready to go, this is actually really easy. I am going to two-finger click on the rectangle layer, and I'm going to mouse down to the second option that says duplicate layer or duplicate layer. Basically what this says is make a copy of the layer, and when I click this button, a little pop-up box shows up and it says, well, what do you want us to call this? And it kind of tells us what it is already. And I mean, you could name it something else, but I think rectangle 1 copy is pretty good. This will let us know what's going on. Now, what might seem odd is in your layers panel, you have 2 layers, but on your screen, you only have 1 rectangle. That's because it copies and pastes that shape or that layer directly right on top of each other. If I click and drag this over to the side, you'll notice that I have 2 of these colors or 2 of these rectangles already there. I'm going to go ahead and just move this or slide this a little bit over with a small little gap there. And I'm going to go up to that copy that I made and I'm going to do the exact same thing. Two-finger click, select duplicate layer or duplicate layer. I'm not really going to worry about what the name is. I'm just going to click OK. And I'm going to slide that over. So on your screen, you should have 3 rectangles that were all basic copies of the original rectangle that we opened up previously. Now, if you feel like this was too much information, go ahead and pause right here, but I'm going to jump right into what we're working on. Now, just to kind of make sure that you guys are along with me, I am going to go in and change the color of 2 of these rectangles to a bit darker shade. And since you guys are going to be doing this with the Netflix icon next to it, make sure you're sampling the right colors. But I just made the 2 outside rectangles a bit darker so you could see what I'm talking about. I'm going to go to the middle one and I'm just going to move this off to the side to make sure that the gap in between these 2 dark ones is good enough. What I mean by good enough is you probably don't want to make it super wide. The Netflix logo is a somewhat narrow, tall, skinny N. So you want to make sure that this gap, this space inside here is mimicking that. It's copying that. Now, I'm going to come back to the second layer, the one that's got this bright red in there, and I'm going to move that into the middle. And this is where it kind of gets tricky. So again, pause if you need it. I'm going to go up to my Edit menu, and I'm going to go down to where it says Transform Path. Now, if you were in class yesterday, we did this exact same step with the YouTube icon. However, instead of going down to warp, I'm going to ask you guys to click on the third option that says skew. This is going to allow us to kind of tilt the middle in the right direction. Now again, I got to tell you that it makes sense to double check before you click anything that you're on the correct layer. Okay, you don't want to be skewing or tilting things that don't necessarily need to be tilted. And because my middle rectangle is actually the middle layer over here, I'm pretty good. Now, we have these dots that are all over the place again, and these should look familiar, but instead of actually changing the size of this, since we clicked skew, when I click and drag, you'll notice that it actually just moves it over. That is, it moves that point over. And I'm going to move these points over to match up with the points of the red, dark red rectangle. And I might have to zoom in here to make sure I get really close. Seems like I was a bit off. There we go. And you'll see how that rectangle now looks slightly slanted. And I'm sure you guys guessed it. This is actually very easy to fix down here. I'm just going to take these points and slide them over to match up with the other rectangle. Now, if you're looking this on my screen right now, you might notice that this is kind of weird because this red, this bright red is on top of this left rectangle, but it looks like it's underneath, and that's okay. I'm just going to press enter to accept those changes, and then I'm actually going to move my bright red on top of everything else. Now if I zoom out, this is basically the Netflix logo. It's two rectangles with a skewed or slanted bright red rectangle right in the middle. But there are some different effects and some different illusions that I want to make sure you guys can see here. So if you've stayed with me so far and you didn't need to pause anything, I'm going to keep moving on. But if you feel like this is moving too fast, pause it, double check, rewind, go back and make sure that you've got all the steps up until this point. Now, there are a lot of different effects that you can change on these layers that I'm clicking through. There's a lot of different special effects that you can add to a layer. However, to add a special effect to a layer, you need to make sure that what you're adding the special effect to has already been rasterized. And we know how to do this. We've done this so much up until this point. So I'm going to two-finger click on the words, and I'm going to click the button that says Rasterize Layer. Which layer am I talking about? I'm talking about the one that is the bright red slanted rectangle right now. Let me undo that and get that back to its spot. Now you'll notice that there's no more shape there anymore. Matter of fact, it's just a preview of this slash right in the middle. And what I want you guys to do is bring your mouse down, and I hope this works, but I don't know if it's going to pop up on the screen. I want you guys to look down at the bottom where the small little FX button is on the layers panel. I'm not sure if this is working for you. You might be getting a gray screen. I'm sorry about that. What I'm talking about is if you look over towards the layers panel and move your mouse all the way down to the bottom where you would be creating a new layer, if you go about 1, 2, 3, 4 icons to the left, you'll see a cursive letter F and X. And I want you guys to click on that because, sorry. I want you guys to click on that because as soon as you click on that or click one of the words, you'll get this layer styles menu that pops open. Now, unfortunately, when I clicked, I accidentally clicked the word satin, but I can take that off by just removing the checkbox. And what I would like you guys to put a checkbox in is the second from the bottom option that says outer glow. All right, and you'll notice that there is a slight yellow halo that kind of gets placed around this object, that red slash. All right, and we're going to play with this a little bit to make it look as though it's got like a shadow underneath. Okay, now I've got the, there we go. I've got the checkbox right here and outer glow, but instead of it being yellow, I want to make sure this is black. So I'm going to actually click on this little yellow dot and change the color to black. And this becomes a little bit harder to see, but that's only because we've got a black background. So I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to come in here now, and I'm going to change some of the options and slider bars that you'll see up and down through this little menu. The first one I'm going to change is the one that says screen, and I'm going to go back to the top option that says normal. Okay? So I'm going to change it from saying screen to normal in this box. Then I'm going to come down to the second box here where I've got a slider bar for the word spread and a slider bar for the word size. And I am going to move the spread up a little bit and I'm going to move the slider bar for the size up a little bit. Now, these two words often get confused, so I'm not telling you specifically where to leave them. I just would like you guys to kind of play around with it first so that you can see what does what. Because even though in this video I can tell you, give you guys a definition of what does what, it's going to be kind of hard to remember. But basically, the slider bar for size controls the overall size to the outside glow. All right? So if I want the size of this glow to be really, really big, I can move the slider bar over to the right. If I click up here and spread, you notice as I click this slider bar back and forth, it's not the overall size of the glow that's changing. It's not the black shadow that's changing. Actually, what's happening is it's either getting crisper or it's getting a little bit more faded out. And this is what you guys have to play around with. I think it would be a good idea to just kind of move these slider bars back and forth so that you can get an effect that kind of matches up with what the Netflix logo looks like. But I also think that you want to make sure that you don't put too much of the effect on. If you need to, the numbers that I've got is about 18% on the spread and about 49 or 50 pixels on the size. And I think that is relatively good for what I need right there. So I'm going to say OK. And if you look now on the edges, I've got this little outside shadow that's being casted on both the left and right sides. It kind of gives the illusion as though this bright red is right on top. Now this is all well and fine. Everything here works, but you'll notice my N, at least the placement of my N, is a little bit closer. It's not really centered. It's a little bit closer to the right side than it is on the left, and I really want this to be right in the middle. So I'm going to go in here and take the other rectangles that I made, and I'm going to rasterize those. And once I make those non-editable, just images, I'm actually going to hold down my Shift key and click on all three of these layers. I'm going to click on all three of these layers because I want to smush this together so that I can actually center it instead of moving each shape independently. So to merge these together, I select all the layers that I want to be merged, make sure that you don't have the background because we don't want to merge it with the background. And then two-finger click and select Merge Layers. What this will do is condense all the layers into one smushed down sandwich of a layer, and it'll allow me to move the N around independently of the background. And here I can kind of move this back and forth until I feel like it's a little bit more in the center. And that looks, well, that looks pretty good right there. Okay? Now, one of the other subtleties to wrap this logo up that I wanted to talk to you guys about was this little curve at the bottom of the N. This is actually very, very easy to do, but you need to make sure that you're aware that you're going to have to do a little hunting and detective work here. And what I mean by that is, so far we have been doing a lot of work with rectangles and rounded rectangles, but we haven't really done work with any other shapes. So on your toolbar, you're going to go to the location where the rectangles were, but you're going to hold down on your mouse button for just a second longer. And you're going to mouse down to the icon. It's the third one that says Ellipse Tool. Ellipse tool. Now your mouse cursor is going to change sort of to a crosshair here, and basically what the ellipse tool is the ability to draw ellipses, or you guys probably know it better as ovals. And what we're going to do is we're going to draw an oval directly over top of this letter N, but we're going to draw it in the color black. Okay, so make sure you have black selected here in your color swatches, not red or any other color. Make sure it's in black. And all I'm going to do is click and drag a long, skinny, flat oval at the bottom of my letter N. Okay? When you click and drag that long, skinny oval and then click off, you'll notice that now you've got the illusion of this curve. And you can change the shape of that oval. Because it's black, it looks like it actually blends into the background color of our button. And if I want to move that a little bit further down, I can do that with my keyboard and just press the down arrow, or I can move it with my mouse. Now I think it looks pretty good right about here. I think that works. And you'll notice that none of my oval is hanging off of my app button. If this does happen to you, if you notice that for some reason when you go in here you like the way this looks, but for some reason it's a little bit too far down, and now all of a sudden, oh no, crap, this is a little bit too longer than I wanted. There's an easy way to fix this, but you do have to rasterize the shape and you have to use the magic wand tool. So what I like to try to tell people is if you don't want to do all those steps, just go ahead and delete the shape that you did and remake another one. Now I'm going to move this up again just so that it's covering everything. And I'm going to show you that here you have the Netflix logo. Now before you guys do anything else, make sure you go up to the top and click File, Save As, and call this Netflix icon. Okay, Netflix icon. You have now in your tool belt Facebook, YouTube, and Netflix. Tomorrow we're going to focus on the Instagram logo. All right. And at the end of class Friday, I'm going to give you guys a document that I would like you to place all of these Photoshop files that you've been working with side by side so you can show off your work, sort of like a digital portfolio. And I want to make sure you guys get credit for it as well. So make sure you guys save as Netflix icon. You guys can close up, or make sure, again, also make sure you've saved it to your USB drive or your Edmodo backpack. And I will see you guys tomorrow when I return and we start to work on Instagram. All right? Good luck, guys. Pause the video if you run into any issues or situations. And remember, you can always replay this if one of the directions went by too fast. See ya.